station. Can you hear me? Is this correct?
No.
Who said no? Mr. Oberman. My name is Ruth Ann White, and I'm the chair of the ROAR Task Force. And on behalf of that group of people, I want to welcome you here tonight. I think your time is going to be very well spent. We're all going to learn a lot from Kate this evening. Very excited about this. I am guessing that because you are here, that you have been touched personally or know someone who has been touched personally with substance use disorder or the opioid crisis. Those of us on the ROAR team take this very personally because many of us have loved ones who have problems with some kind of substance use. We think we are in this together. We are in this together to make a difference in Lunenburg. It's happening right here in our town. We can't hide it. We can't sweep it under the rug. The ROAR Task Force started about 2 years ago. ROAR stands for, I have to read it to make sure I say it right, Resources for Opioid Awareness and Recovery. We have had, this is our 6th event, and our goals are to raise awareness, to provide fact-based information, and to provide resources for folks. Especially, we want to reduce the stigma and shame that often surrounds this issue. It's a medical condition, not a moral failing. I want to thank all the people who have supported us. We have Dr. Kate Burnham, our superintendent, and our chief of police, Jim Marino, and the school principals have been wonderful in supporting our work here in Lunenburg. Our ROAR team is right at the moment, is all spread out, so later I'm going to have them stand and be recognized by you. But I do want to thank the people who provided our refreshments tonight. They came to us from the Pilgrim Covenant Church and the United Parish. I thank our resource table. I think our resource table folks are still out there, but we appreciate them hustling in and providing you with information and conversation that we hope was helpful. Tonight we have the Lunenburg Access Channel. Joe McLaughlin is up in the back videotaping this program so that we can share it on the Lunenburg Access Channel to people who couldn't be here tonight. At about 4:30, I got a message saying, "I can't come. Are you taping?" So it's the kind of thing you may want to watch more than once or twice also. Big shout out to Walmart, who has provided ROAR with a grant, which has enabled us to bring Kate here to you tonight. In your program, if you would open up the program, I want to point out something very special called the Interface Helpline. This is something that the town of Lunenburg and the schools have contracted to use. It's available to all Lunenburg residents and students attending Lunenburg schools. It enables you to find therapy, a therapist, or a treatment program for a mental health issue or a substance abuse issue. If you've ever tried to find a therapist or a program, you know how difficult that can be. And this program helps match you and your needs and your insurance with the right person. It's an awesome resource, so please take advantage of it. One of the ways that young folks especially may begin experimenting with some kind of substance use is right out of our medicine cabinets. So we want to encourage you, if you have leftover medications you're no longer using, please take them to the Lunenburg Police Station. They have a big bin where you can put them and they're out of harm's reach. You heard about our raffle. Walmart provided us with 2 $50 gift cards, and Kate provided us with a confidential family strategy session, which is a $500 value. We're going to be pulling the raffle tickets at the end of the program. A little housekeeping piece. Emergency exits are up there, and here. There is no door here. That's sort of instinctive. You think there should be, but there is not. So please don't try to go that way. And Jim Marino, thank you. Giveaway, our chief of police just came in. I thanked you earlier. Thanks for being here. Okay, now I want to introduce Kate. Kate Duffy said to our team, so what if everybody learned from Dr. Potee, who we had in the fall, and been inspired by Chris Herron, who came to speak to the student body last fall? What do they do next? They have a loved one struggling. What happens when you know someone is using? How do you handle it? How do you deal with it? And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? That's where the rubber hits the road, and there's pain all around, and we don't know where to turn. I've been in that place, and I know it's hard. And I want to commend all of you for having the courage to be here tonight. It's a huge, huge thing that you've done by coming. Kate became deeply passionate about changing the language of recovery after facing her own battle with substance use. She developed skills to engage people resistant to begin recovery and to educate families to understand recovery language. In this way, she equips us to assist our loved ones in a more impactful way. Tonight, Kate will share the program she has developed called Recovery Conversations that teaches us step by step what to do and what not to do to support somebody in recovery all the way through the crisis stage, in treatment, in recovery. This is a successful and proven family-based recovery model. Kate graduated from Lesley University with a BS in early childhood education. Before devoting her time to recovery coaching, she was the founding executive director of Evergreen Day School in Cambridge, Mass. She moved into a consultant and a training role in the field of education before becoming a life coach. Then Kate trained with nationally recognized certified interventionists. She is now president of Tipping Point Recovery. Most recently, she worked with the Fitchburg Police, intervening with people who had overdosed, as well as providing follow-up about what they might do next. Kate calls upon her personal experience and that of over 200 interventions. She promises that we will leave tonight feeling more empowered to facilitate recovery in our families and have practical tools to use right away. We join with her in saying enough is enough. She is here to make a difference. Would you join me in reading?
I'm already asking for a box of tissues. Welcome, everybody. I'm really glad you're here. I have notes because I have so much to say. You can hear me okay with this? I have so much to say that I have a tendency to severely digress. So these will keep me on a path because I really want to make sure you leave with specific information. So forgive that if it feels formal. It's helping me. And I'm going to play around with this. I asked for a box of tissues. I already said that. Okay. So one question I have is raise your hand if you have been lied to by someone with addiction. I was going to say, if you don't have your hand up, you probably forgot. Raise your hand if you have lost something and someone to addiction. Yeah. And raise your hand if your health has been impacted due to addiction. Wow. Okay. So So, when I was a little girl, all I ever wanted was to be a mom. At 3 years old, my mother told me I was pushing a baby stroller with my doll. At 11, I was babysitting as much as I could, and at 15, a stranger handed me their newborn on an airplane. It was so important to me to be a mom. At 19, when I was diagnosed with endometriosis and told the night before surgery that I may need a hysterectomy, they told me that after they gave me a sleeping pill. When I woke up, I managed, still in the recovery room, to call home to see what had happened, and lo and behold, all my parts were still there. I was blessed with 3 children in the next number of years. I remember one night in December walking in my hometown with my 3 children. My 6-year-old, my 4-year-old, and Jenny, who's right here, in a front pack. December, mid-December, and I was in the town center, and the Christmas lights were out, there was music playing, and I stopped with the child in each hand and my baby at my breast. And I took in a huge deep breath. I was so full. And I felt the warm tear on my freezing cold face. And it's etched in my mind. 15 years later, I came home to those 3 same children. At the time, 21, 19, and 16. And they had about 8 wine bottles lined across the table, all empty. Actually, in one, there was about this much left, and that's where my focus was. Michael, my son, who was 19, said, "Mom, you told us you couldn't drink anymore." And I said, "Michael, my sponsor, who I didn't have, told me I wasn't an alcoholic." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Wow, I guess that's good." And he believed me because I was his mom. So the first thing I want to tell you is we lie all the time when we are active. We even lie until we really start to get well. And sometimes even when we're well, because you lie too. And by the way, I say we for us in recovery, and I say we for me at the table as a family member. Hopefully you'll catch on when I'm saying one or the other. So tonight, what I'm going to do with you is be brutally honest. At times you might not like it, but 72,000 people died last year. And 60,000 the year before, and 50,000 the year before, and 40, and then like 12. So the bar goes crazy high. And it's my belief that the lies that we tell are a big part of the problem. There are other lies that are happening in the industry, and I'm here to tell you about them. I sometimes drive down the road, actually fairly often, and I look at houses, and I imagine that every 4th or 5th house, there's someone in a bedroom, and there's someone in a kitchen who has no clue how lost the person is in the bedroom. And I literally want to knock on the doors and tell people there might be something you need to know. Because lives are depending on this. So let me just back up a little bit. You did say, Ruth Ann, that we're filming tonight, and I want to speak to that a little bit because it's really important to me that you feel a safety and a container tonight. If you find that you want to ask a question or share something and you don't want to be filmed, that's why we gave you index cards and a pen. So you can submit your question and get it to somebody on the ROAR team to bring down when we're doing questions. Your privacy is really important. Another teeny little story to set us up for the next hour is the other thing I had going on for me as a little girl was I felt confused by what I felt and what I heard in life. So in my belly, and you'll know what I mean, I knew when something was up, when somebody was angry, when some conflict was unresolved, when I felt it. And I asked, and I was told everything was fine. I grew up in New England, Catholic. We didn't talk about anything other than sort of the surface stuff. It's how my parents were raised. Yeah, there's some smiles and nods. I think you all grew up with me. And so, but I knew inside, so my insides didn't match my experience. And I think of that a lot lately because that's what's going on right now in our world, but particularly in this industry. What we see and what we hear isn't always matching up. No one taught us communication skills. No one taught us that our nervous system impacts our ability to listen to people. Sometimes we're not even aware, but when we take in information and we give out information, it's not landing the way we're expecting. Right? So because I felt this weirdness growing up, I always saw that. And other people in my family either didn't see it or they weren't talking about it. So that's what I'm talking about tonight. Talking about the elephant in the room. And the sickness cycle that is lying and denying and manipulation is what I want to share with you. The shame and the guilt and the fight or flight that we often get to. I tell this a lot in my groups. Our body doesn't know the difference between a dinosaur about to attack us or a lion and, that we're late for work or that we're worried about a loved one. And so our body is going through a lot. Especially when this addiction is. When I first started to work with families, I was kind of surprised when I saw how I felt families were sick too. And again, I call myself one of those. And after working with hundreds of families, I can tell you that we've become sick. Last year, I attended a training with Earl Hightower, who's a nationally recognized interventionist. Powerful example. You can look him up on YouTube. And he said something. He said, if you've been anywhere near an alcoholic or an addict for any length of time, you've gotten sick. And I said, I knew it. Because that's what I felt. But the sickness for families looks different. It's confusion, fear, unsure, angry, unable to handle or manage, not sure what to do, right? Lost. Does that resonate? So I told you I was going to uncover some lies tonight. Addiction lies. You're in the dark a lot of the time. It's also not about drugs and alcohol. Did you know that? Raise your hand if you knew it was not about drugs and alcohol. And so, what do I mean by that? Anyone? Who's not in recovery?
It's about what you're trying to run away from.
It's what's going on inside. So, take away the drugs and alcohol, and you have a sick, unwell, unbalanced mental health issue within. And you're sick too. I'm sorry. I believe strongly that the families, and I'll show you some data, the families that engage in that idea, that you become sick through the sickness cycle, through the lies, through the confusion, through the fear. Your ability to shift and change that dramatically impacts your loved ones. Willingness to find recovery, ability to stay in recovery, and guess what? You get better too. And I don't mean better from the addiction sickness in your family. I mean better at every level of your life. In terms of how you feel about yourself, in terms of your outlook, in terms of what you shoot for, in terms of your goals, in all areas. Definitely in terms of your health. So I want to do a quick pulse check. You have a program from me that has 2 hands on the front. I want you to think of at your worst moment in panic, stress, fear, overwhelm, terror, whatever word you use, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, actually I have something to show you to give you a visual. So 1's on the left, see the guy on the left? So this is the stress meter. I use this all the time. So in your worst moment, in your home or wherever you are, and you're in a panic, put a number on the front of your booklet. Just circle it. Anybody want to say what a number would be? 10. Who else? Okay, so put your number down. Everybody got that? So I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you in a minute. And here's what you're going to do. I want you to tell them your number. I want you to look them in the eye, and I want you to tell them that you're sorry. And then I want you to tell them your person loves you. And then I want you to tell them if you change, they'll change. And you know how I know that they love you? I was watching a news clip, which I watch TV, the news at least twice a year maybe. This was a couple of years ago, and they were showing in Ohio, which is a horrific epicenter of death overdose. And they were showing a morgue. And then they went into a jail, and they were interviewing this woman who was detoxing. And they said, the reporter said, if there's anything you could say to your family, what would it be? And he passed the mic to her, and I mouthed, as she said, I'm sorry, and I love you. Every single one of us does not want to lie to you. We do love you, and we hate that we're lying. So I'd like you to turn to the person next to you. You're going to share your number, one at a time. I'm sorry. Your person loves you. If you change, they will change. So go ahead. Does everybody get a chance to do it?
That's a tough one.
So here's what's true. What did that feel like, somebody? So you maybe didn't know this was interactive, because some talks you just get talked to. But I'm not talking to you. I don't do anything that isn't interactive, because that's what we need to do to heal. And I know right now, I just know that you're already feeling a little more relaxed, because you've connected with other human beings in your community. And you know what happens? A problem shared is cut in half. And you also heard someone say the same words you were feeling, and now you feel a little less alone. True? Anybody want to just share what that was like? There's always a few extroverts in the room. Yes.
I had a bit of a hard time with the change stage. I was doing for my addict who died of cirrhosis of the liver, and I didn't deal with that change. And I kind of just said,
Okay. So she was saying she has a hard time with if you change, they'll change. She changed a lot and eventually had to ask him to leave. I would question whether your changing a lot helped you have him leave.
yes.
Okay. So that's what I'm talking about, right? The change, when I say they will change, we can't control that part, but we can control our response to it. Right? Thank you. Anybody else want to share? What did that feel like to share with the person next to you? Yes.
Well, now that you explain your change, my change, which, took a while, was to understand they lie all the time. They'll tell you what you want. They'll pull your heartstrings. Even though my wife is saying, she already knew that, but I finally, changed to understand, what they're saying, what, my son was saying. And unfortunately, he's still got to change, but I have.
That's right. Thank you. Jen?
I also just wanted to say for me, at least in my own life, if I can change, the person will change. That may not mean that they're going to be successful in recovery right away, but I at least have seen a change in their behavior.
Right. So Jenny's tried this and seen a change in someone else's behavior. Maybe they haven't found recovery, but definitely a shift. It's a fact energetically. If you're in a dance with someone, any kind of conversation or emotional or relational dance, and you change your move, they have to change. But we need some new skills to do this. It takes time. It takes time to implement and change to the degree that I'm suggesting. But I want you to know it is possible. For those of you that know you want more tools and ability to change, got support from a community. I'll talk at the end about an offering that I have that you can take part in. So, I want to now say, what are we dealing with? How many of you have been to Ruth Potte's talk or seen her on YouTube? Or let me say it the other way around. How many have not? Okay, so I'm going to do a really quick overview. And those of you who've seen it have probably seen it more than once. And like Ruth Ann said, these talks you do want to watch over and over because it's a new way of thinking about things. But what I want you to understand is we have a baseline of dopamine, all of us, around 100. And when we use drugs or we have a great experience with food or sex, we get a spike. But the normal spike goes back to normal. With drug use, so when we have an orgasm, we go back to normal. When we use a drug that goes that high in dopamine, our brain can't handle, stops, shuts down. No more dopamine. And it returns below normal. This is important to know. I was talking with the owner of a treatment facility recently, and I said, if we could see our illness, and we both kind of just talked about, like imagine it would be this gaping, we wouldn't be sent home if you could see our illness and this firing that's going on. So we have a broken brain. So when you talk to us, you're talking to someone with a broken brain. You're talking to someone that isn't reasoning. You can't reason with someone that can't reason. And obviously this is one of Ruth's biggest gut-wrenching slides. And the difference she talks about in her talk, how we're treated in the ER. Whereas this gentleman has a lifestyle that maybe impacted his disease of heart disease, but he's not talked to the same way that this girl's talked to. And he's also not stealing your jewelry, and he's not lying to you. Maybe he is, but that's a different problem, right? But heart disease doesn't present in behavioral ways that addiction does. So in my opinion, that's a big part of the problem. We would be dealing with this a whole lot different if we were able to talk in that way. So what can we do? We have an imperfect system. That's my new way of handling this. A system with discrepancies is a lot easier for me to navigate than when I'm angry and frustrated at the system. We have families that get broken through the pain. But what we can do, so this data comes from the 2 years I was on call with the Fitchburg Police Department. Typically, when someone overdoses and goes to the ER without an intervention from a peer, they discharge without help, majority. When a recovery coach is there to talk to them, and hang with them and drive them somewhere and circle back with them the next day and go to a meeting, even if it's not a meeting, it's 5 guys, 85% were engaging with me. Now, engagement didn't look like straight to treatment, committing for a year to treatment. Engagement looks like I'm willing to talk with a peer. And within 3 weeks, 70% of them were in treatment of some kind. And the majority of them were asking me to talk to their families. So the bridge between me and you comes from, I'll be speaking at a treatment facility to 50 people, 50 patients in detox and rehab, and I start talking about the family work I'm doing. And they line up to ask me to talk to their family. I was surprised when that first happened because I said, "Are you sure?" Because I'm going to tell them the truth. And they said, "Yeah, because my dad's enabling me," or "My wife doesn't understand." The last place we should go when we leave treatment is home. The last place we should go when we leave treatment is home. So who else is lying to you? The treatment facility when they discharge them at 2 or 3 weeks. The insurance company when they cover 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it takes a year for our brain to heal. So if you know this, you can be empowered to do things differently. I'm currently talking with a researcher and a scientist about tracking the data of the work. So let me just give you a little snapshot of that. I'm engaging all these people. So the tough part about that was I had one other person working with me, and that's a lot of people. So we started to do things in groups and go to meetings. And I ended up with all these families that they were asking me to talk to. So I just gathered around a table at CHC in Fitchburg, and we talked. They'd ask a question, they'd share their panic, and I would answer it as a recovering alcoholic addict. And I'll tell you right now, the families that came every week for 1 year, all of their people were sober. Not at all at the same time, but many now, most, are over a year, coming up on a year, over a year. But they really engaged. They came every week, and they didn't like what I said. Sometimes they didn't like what each other said to each other. They didn't like the way it felt. So I'm a strong supporter of all the support groups of Al-Anon. What I'm hearing people want is they need to be able to ask questions, and you can't do that at Al-Anon. You want to ask questions, but what I don't want to see happen at meetings, support groups, is you need to go find this halfway house. You need to go, that's just going to amp you back up into fight or flight as well. You don't need to go find the halfway house. Do you need to learn about what it takes and what the path is and what the multiple pathways to recovery are? Absolutely. It's helpful for you to know. But it's not your job to navigate that. The analogy I think of a lot is you're building a house and you're putting up the roof tiles and the foundation's not even built and you're just standing there holding up the roof tiles. You wouldn't do that. So what makes us think we can do this ourselves? If we were calm and grounded and had the tools and had the know-how. I'll tell you right now, I cannot help my children. I cannot help my children should they appear struggling with addiction. I'm a recovering alcoholic and an addict. Why wouldn't I be able to? I'm an interventionist. Why wouldn't I be able to? Absolutely, completely not. I would call an interventionist. And that didn't happen overnight. I'm just like everybody else, wanting to fix myself. So this is what we found. Loved ones of people who came to these groups over time were 5 times more likely for their person to get well. Because what we're doing is we're whispering in your ear, we're texting you how to reply to a screenshot of a question. We're breaking down patterns and patterns, or fixed patterns that you've had for years in how. I mean, whoever taught us how to have an open and honest dialogue about conflict? Certainly in my house, I told you that didn't happen. And now you've got someone with a broken brain, and I think you'd probably tell me, because I talk to hundreds of people, sometimes you're pretty pissed. And sometimes things don't come out the way you want them to. So what chances are that that's going to land the way you intended it to, right? A message, a delivery. So without somebody helping with that bridge, it's challenging. So I want to talk for a minute about, and I can tell the people in recovery here because you're nodding your heads, but this is what we do, and this is what we hate, and this is what we need. So let's talk about this for a minute. We justify, we blame, we manipulate, we lie, we sneak, we deny, we compartmentalize. That's addiction. That's not your person. That's addiction. That's the disorder of addiction. That's what it looks like. We hate ourselves. We hate hurting you. We hate stealing from you. We hate lying to you. And we hate feeling any distress. That's why we use drugs and alcohol. And by the way, you probably know this, but we don't get high anymore. We do still get drunk. But it's about maintaining. It's about shutting off. It's about running away. Here's what we need. So what kind of house can create that? Loving, full self-love. Peers and community. Prayer and higher power. Acceptance of what is. I don't mean acceptance of this is okay. I mean acceptance of what is. Here's where we are. That's the reality. Here's where we are. Boundaries. We need to feel the full effects of our addiction. And we don't feel the full effects when you give us a pillow or a soup or money or. We don't feel the full effects. We need the truth. We need how this is impacting you. In a delivery that we don't do when we're feeling terrified. We need long-term treatment. We need 12 steps. We need love from you. We need self-love too. And who can we get that from? Not you. How badly we want to shove self-love at people. People say, I just wish he knew how much I loved him, and you tell us you love us. And it doesn't help. It doesn't go inside. You know, a plant, when it's like fully watered and you try to water it and it runs over the sides, that's what happens when you try to shove self-esteem in us. It won't go in. It has to come from inside by doing esteeming things. That's how we get self-esteem. And we can't do esteeming things when we're not given the opportunity to fall. I like to think of like when a toddler's learning to walk. We let them fall. In fact, we celebrate it. But later in life, we don't want them to fall. Why? Why don't we want people to fall with addiction? We don't want them to die. So I want families to say, oh, so what I'm really having a hard time with is worrying that someone I love is going to die. That's a different story from how do I get my person sober. Because it's my belief that if you're here, you also don't want to feel any distress. And definitely, now some of you, right? Not all. Some, you don't want your person to feel distress either, right? I was that one in my family. I was rescued all the time. Even still, if I allowed it, they would help me. But you know what I got for a message when people were doing for me? I can't. That's what I heard. Kate, we'll do this for you. Poor Kate. Asthmatic as a child. Poor Kate. Husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore. Poor Kate, look what happened. Pour her another drink is what was happening. And I'm not, this isn't about blame. This is just about truth. This is just about shining a flashlight on the truth, which is the message that I got was you are a little bit less than, or you're not able to. And it was maybe just the story in my head, but the behavior facilitated that. Will help you. And that's loving. So, right? It's not a bad thing to want to help someone. But taught us to raise children is to raise them to launch. No one teaches you that. They're like little mini me's, and they're just, you know, and so it's this cycle of unhealth and attachment, and it's messy. And you add drugs and alcohol to that. No wonder we have trouble separating from it. I'm wanting families to cultivate an environment of recovery. My mission in life, and I won't stop till the day I die, is to cultivate communities of recovery. communities where the police are here, communities where business leaders are here. This is a community recovery conversation, and if I could have, I would have had us in a big circle. Because, and turning to the person next to you, that's how we build community. That's the only way we're going to get well, is to start to get well ourselves. I've seen it. When you get well yourself, it ripples out. You're able to fill up. How many people here in this room in the last couple of years has balance, life balance? Okay, good. Some of you were really working on it. Good job. You've been doing it for a bit. Is there anybody here who has balance and hasn't done any work through Al-Anon or through support groups or therapy and has balance in the panic? Right. But you do the work, right? Did you have some work to get to that point? You can have the balance. It's running away from ourselves. And so my personal experience is I numbed with alcohol and then drugs and then what? Then guess what? Relationships. And then sugar. And because I'm on a journey, I'm peeling it back. But that's what we're doing. And so I'm going to invite you for a minute now to do some self-reflection in your in my little booklet. So on the first page, I want you to fill out my blank is blank, and that means that. So my sister is an addict, and that means that. And she's not, but you fill it in. My blank is blank, so I'm encouraging you or leading you toward my relationship is an alcoholic or an addict, and that means that. And just for you, I want you to answer the question, what does that mean? Everyone's answer will be different. Anybody surprised by their answer? Can we hear a couple? What does it mean for you? Anybody? Yes.
My son is an addict, and that means I watch him losing himself and hurting miserably.
I watch him losing himself and hurting miserably. Yes.
I'm going to say my blank.
My blank is an addict, an alcoholic, and that means I lose respect and I worry about his health.
Lose respect and worry about his health. And tell me yours again.
I watch him losing himself and he is hurting.
So you're watching him lose himself. I want you to go down to the next two lines that say my outside challenges and my inside challenges. I want to coach you through this for a minute. Around the thing you just wrote, the statement. What's an inside challenge? An outside challenge, meaning it's out of you. And what's an inside challenge about that? So I watch him, that's an inside, right? Or actually it's an outside challenge. What's the inside about that? It hurts. This takes a little bit of doing, but I want you to break it down and I want you to separate the two. What's the outside part of it? Out of my control. He's using recklessly. That's outside. Inside is, I don't sleep. I'm not breathing. I'm not calm. I don't have balance. That's my inside, right? Does that make sense? Anybody else, whether it's yours or not, you can just share. What's an outside and what's an inside challenge?
I feel like both of mine are inside.
Let me hear.
I lose respect and I worry about.
So you lose respect and you worry about. So worry, is that inside? That's inside you. You worry. Yep, you own that one. And lose respect is a perception of him that you have, and that's inside. Yeah. So that's good, actually. To have the more inside problems you have, it's good news. I know you don't want that, but guess why? Then you can do something about that. That's the one you can do something about. Do you want to feel less worry? Yes. Do you want to feel less disrespect for someone? Do you want to feel less sick, confused? I've actually had a number of conversations with families where they've said, I actually don't want to live like that, meaning I don't want to stop drinking my 6 to 12 beers at night, a parent or a spouse. I don't want to work on myself. That's important for you to know. If that's the case, that's important for you to know. I've also had people say to me, I don't believe that he can get sober. That's really important to know, because that will leak out. That's the truth. It's just information, important to know. How is it for you? What do you want? What do you want to have happen? I want to talk with you about a different, the video would have brought you to this different way of looking at addiction. We're not talking about drugs and alcohol now. So addiction is lack of presence. Okay? So the opposite of that is presence. So my suggestion to families, and I've seen this now in a couple of hundred families, you working on presence. How do you work on presence when you're freaking out? Is it hard? Yeah, a lot. I know some of you here have actually done it. Do you know how to work on presence? Being present? Does anybody have what's the first thing you would do?
I try breathing.
You try breathing. What an idea. It's something to try. You should definitely try it. And what we're doing right now is not what you're talking about. So the breathing that actually makes you present looks like this. We might have taken 4 breaths while I did that one. And so it starts down in your toes, and it goes all the way up, and then it goes all the way down. And you could do it right now while I'm talking to you, and you're going to feel different. Your number on that scale is going to go down as you breathe. And we, in addiction, we are not present. We actually don't want to be present. We want to leave. And if you're present, approaching us, do you see the difference in the conversation? Versus you going over here with us, which is what can happen with fear. It's also an inability to cope with distress. So we ask someone to go get sober, take out your solution, and then you should be so grateful. You have so much to be grateful for. But we just took away all the solutions. So it takes a long, 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 long time for us to gain. I'm 6 years sober a couple weeks ago, and I get more and more well every year. And I will continue to get more and more well. We're not well for a while. We should not be home. We should be with our peers and having you work on your balance and your presence. And how do you cope with distress? How do you cope with distress? And when we're around your distress, we're going to feel that and feed it. It's a lack of connection. So you know what we need most? We need connection. How connected are you to your person when they're using, and how connected are you when they're in recovery? How connected are we at all? This, to me, is our biggest problem. This is what we're worried about with kids, little kids. This is the biggest problem, this lack of connection. The way you looked at your person next to you and you said, I'm sorry that's happening for you, and your person loves you, that minute, that was a connection. And I'm not suggesting you don't have this in your family. I'm hoping you do. But I know the opposite. I know we don't have connection. And when we do, go figure, 80 years ago, 2 men sat in a room after hundreds and hundreds of years of not knowing how to treat addiction and stayed sober. Bill and Bob. And hence the big book and the 12 steps were developed. That's all it took was 2 people talking. And what we're doing right now is we're having a recovery conversation. Imagine a community when you're working on these things, helping you cope with distress, helping you connect, helping you be present. Imagine a community that has your back, your side, and your front. That's what the group that came together for a couple of years had. And they're so close. Today I was looking at my pictures of one of Ruth Cote's talks, and we had 2 whole rows of recovery conversations family. So the bridges, I want to talk for a minute about the bridges. I'm going to give you a story that was recent. Somebody experienced a relapse. And because we can't be sure of the truth, I was involved with the family and the individual, so I was able to feed the family information that was true, feed the treatment center information that was true, which further solidified the person's presence. Because we go to treatment, and the majority of the time, we're pretty squirrely for a while, and one restlessness, we want to leave. In my first year of recovery, I worked in a detox. And this was my first exposure to the lies outside of myself. Because I really didn't have a lot of experience with recovery prior to coming in myself. And there was a young woman I was helping. She was in the detox, and I was talking with her about doing further treatment, going to rehab. We had several options, and she said, no, my mom said I can come home. And I said, are you sure? And this went on for a few days, and at the end of the day, she said, I want to go home. And I left to go have a cigarette. I don't smoke anymore, but then I did. And I went downstairs in the elevator, I had a cigarette, and I came back up in the elevator, and I was with this woman who I didn't know, but it was her mom. And I said, how are you? She said, I'm okay, I'm really upset. I'm picking up my daughter, there were no beds. And in my head, I'm like, ooh, that's not true. I didn't say anything. And I got off the elevator. Now, this was 6 years ago. 6 years ago. And my boss said, you can't tell her, Mom. And that just made no sense to me. So, there you go. And that's the thing I want to stop. That's the thing I want to stop. Because I believe we are killing ourselves because we're not telling you. And we want to tell you. We just can't, or we don't, or we shorten it, or sometimes we do. But we're not the ones that should be driving. Another story, in the emergency room, somebody comes in post-overdose, and I'm in a conversation with them, and I would say on my scale, they're like 90% ready to go to treatment. And a doctor walks over and says, here are your discharge summary, no drinking or drugs for the rest of the day. No drinking or drugs for the rest of the day, doctor, discharge summary. Now this was 3 or 4 years ago, and I shot fire out of my eyes up at that doctor. I was like, and this was when the grant first started, he didn't understand what I was doing, and once they did, they worked with us. But that's a lie, a big fat lie. And because it's an untruth. And that's what I want to stop. And there's a new law in Rhode Island being passed now that anyone who comes into the ER from an overdose, we call their next of kin when they're awake. We call family, which is a good idea. Because we are not, I'm the first one to say, should I choose to relapse? I'm not able to be in charge. Now, I'm not going to be fun or pleasant. I'm going to be a complete jerk, and I'm going to say really mean and hurtful things. And that's asking a lot of my family to deal with or put up with. But I'm not the one that should be driving the bus for my program. Not until I'm ready to get honest. And I don't take the answer, well, we can't because of HIPAA. It doesn't mean I don't take that answer. Today, in this day, we are asking a lot of questions and we are getting a lot changed. In the court in Fitchburg, when the judge sees an individual with a recovery coach, he called me up one day, asked me how this guy was doing, what he wanted to do, and he said, take your money and give it to her to bring to the sober house. And he wipes the warrant away. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen all the time, but we're starting to catch on. I recently asked someone who was being sectioned, who can I talk to at the facility to try to do an intervention at the facility? And I heard a couple different answers. Well, you can't do that. I don't hear that. That's just like fuzz. I just asked the wrong person, or I need to ask someone else. Because guess what? In a year or 2 or 3, maybe we will be doing that. And if nobody asks, we never will be doing that. So guess what I found out? There are pathfinders in those places now, DOC. So when you section someone, there are actually 15 people like recovery coaches in those facilities working to connect people and engage harder than maybe a counselor who might ask and take a no. And they're following them, and they're going to families, and they're talking to families. So I found one of those pathfinders, and she's going to let me talk to the executive director. I want to bring family in. If the person says no, okay, but we at least can try. Because that person who's there, why would they want to go call you when they get there? You're the one that put them there, and they're pissed. You put them there to save their life, but they're not going to go, hey, I get it. Not right away, but most do, right? The ones of you that have section that I know, most of us come around and we're grateful that you saved our lives. But we're not going to have a conversation. You need a bridge. You need a bridge at that point. I had someone recently who was ready to be discharged out of the CSS because of an insurance glitch that got fixed. But in his mind, he said, I'm going to go. Of course he did, because he wanted his recovery too. This wasn't someone that was fleeing, but he wanted to leave because he was restless and he was like, let me get on to the next stage. He's going to a sober house. But he didn't need to leave. I plugged that hole like Swiss cheese. And he stayed and he got insurance. And he got another couple of weeks. So no doesn't mean no. Ever to me. Sorry. So I want to ask, look at that. That's a great picture that I found about building a bridge and healing in community. I want to hear what questions you have.
I have a question, Kate. What does someone do when they first realize that their loved one has a problem? Where do you go? What do you do?
So the question is, when is anybody here at the very beginning stages of this path? You just learned someone you love is struggling? So what would they do? Who do they call? And thank you, because that's really what I want to get into is, what are your options? What can you do? So my first answer to that is, I think of the roof analogy. If you would put tiles on your roof, then do that. But if you wouldn't, personally, and I've learned this the hard way, I cannot help my family. You call someone who can. And so I would say you can call me, and my number is all over that pamphlet, but there are other people you could call as well, and I can give you those numbers. You could call Learn to Cope. You could call ROAR.
There are 3 clinicians listed in the program that you can call who will give you guidance on the inside of the resources.
Did you hear me? There are 3 clinicians listed on the inside who can give you guidance, as well as some of those things down below, mass substance abuse helpline, and those may feel more impersonal, but the ones up above are people.
I want to just explain a few of the scenarios. Whenever I talk with a family for the first time, I almost 100% of the time hear, thank you so much, I had no idea where to turn. And so you're right, Jackie. ROAR has been incredible, providing the amount of resources you are. And fortunately, there's more today than there was years ago. But the first thing you need to do is call somebody, because your problem is cut in half when you share it. I don't believe this is something we should be doing alone. And I want to talk about the 3 different options. I mean, there's 911, right? But that's the emergency. You know what that looks like. And then there's Section 35, which is going to the court Monday through Friday and talking into the clerk's office and asking to file a Section 35 and describing your situation. And it's usually when things are pretty scary. Somebody's really out of control. And then there's an intervention. I want to talk a few minutes about what an intervention is. Because I don't believe people understand. I didn't know what an intervention was. I think we have an idea of what it looks like. But let me describe it to you, because I've now done a number of them. And when I talk about the emergency room intervention, that was me going into someone who had just overdosed. That's a different type of intervention. I'm intervening. But I'm talking about an intervention where 80% of it is working with the family and not the individual until the end. And here's what I want to describe. Many broken parts coming together. Beautiful healing. Beautiful repair and conversation. I have witnessed some of the most incredible conversations among family members who have started to not talk. Someone's pissed and done. There's always one that's done in the family. And someone else they say is the enabler. You know, we all have different ways of handling these things. But you bring your family together, or I bring your family together. This is the other thing. I'm working with a family right now, and she's like, here's what we're going to do. And I have to say, I'm the roofer. Put your tools down. Because you're the patient. You're the person who needs the guidance. Let it go. That's one of the biggest challenges I've had as a loved one, is letting go of trying to manage everybody and everything. And so I facilitate conversations. And there's a path. There's a formula. I went to Earl Hightower's training. He is like the artist of intervention. He has no process. He's organic. He's like a John Belushi. He's brilliant. He's talented. And he's so gifted. It was fascinating listening to him, and I didn't know what to do after I went. But I can call him anytime. And then I went to Mike Wilson, who's in Beverly, and he's got a process, and it's linear, and there's steps by steps, and I'm merging the two and making my own. And it's a beautiful process. If you haven't done one, have a conversation with me or Mike or someone about that. And learn what is involved. I get so sad when I hear somebody struggling and nothing's being done. And I'm not talking to you if you're here. I'm talking about, I get calls a lot from friends. And I think nothing gets done because we don't know what to do, and we're sick of it. It's been going on for so many years. I've got family members right now, and the rest of my family doesn't want to approach. Well, I'm going to prepare a conversation. Because I want to know, when someone does pass away, that I've done everything possible I could do. But I get why we're not talking about it. It's freaking scary. But get someone who knows how to you know what an intervention is? It's teaching people to love, teaching people to repair the torn edges between us, and teaching people to communicate. You know how beautiful it is when you learn how to say, here's how I felt when this happened? I recently did same guy that I was just talking about that wanted to leave his CSS because of insurance. He stayed. I brought his family in, and this is what I had his family say to him in treatment. And first of all, I want to say that the counselor said his ability to stay well has a lot to do with you guys. And it's not to put pressure on the family. It's to say, if your loved one became deaf, would you learn sign language? Yes, you would. If they lost their leg, like my dad just did, would you build a ramp? You would. So I'm saying, let's learn recovery language. There's a whole thing about this. It's real. And when you learn recovery language, and you learn the 12 steps, and you heal on the inside, you can help your person. And so here's what this family said to this individual. Your relapse affected me. I felt scared, sad, worried. Not you, anything. No sentence started with you. And guess what? As they were writing it, they wanted to say you. And I helped them shift it to, here's how your relapse affected me. And the second statement was, my recovery plan is, what? My recovery plan as your mom, as your dad, as your girlfriend is, and they said what theirs was. And it sounded like this. Attend my meetings, nature, yoga, meditation, AA. That's a big one, by the way. If you're not going to AA and you're a family member, you should go to AA. Go to an open AA meeting. People are liking that a lot more than other meetings lately. That's where you're going to sit in a room and listen to people and feel totally different about your person. So the third thing they said was, oh yeah, this is a big one. I see how it's a family disease. I inadvertently contributed by blank. Here are some of the things people say. I inadvertently contributed. And this isn't specific to this family. It's I did nothing. I gave you my car. I saw the bottles and I didn't bring it up. What else? You guys tell me, how do we inadvertently, you don't have to speak personally, just in general.
Money.
Money. Money? Yeah. And you know what else I was thinking? Of course you believe us when we say it's really for this. And you know why of course you believe us? And of course I believe my family, because we want to believe them. Don't we? We want to believe that we're not this sick. So it's okay that you believe, but when you learn not to believe, you separate from the addiction. You don't feed the addiction. Do you see when I give you these suggestions why I want to work with families? I want to empower you to be able to say, here's how your addiction affected me, lovingly, with your hand on your heart. Here's what I need. Here are my boundaries. I will do anything I can to support your recovery. I'm going to do nothing to support addiction. When families learn they're supporting the addiction, isn't that kind of gross? You don't want to support the addiction, but you even know what the ways are that you support an addiction? You do? You know some? I bet you don't know all, and you got to pick it apart. You're going to be willing. You have to be willing, just like I have to be willing. When I get sober, I have to be willing, open-minded, and honest. You have to be honest and willing and open-minded, because is this stuff open-minded? Do you need to be open-minded to hear what I'm saying to you? You didn't control this. I mean, you didn't cause this, but you are contributing to it. You can't control it, but you definitely can control how you respond to it. And you can't cure it. There isn't a cure. People know that? Do you know what the solution is, though? You need to know the solution. If your person had a brain tumor, you would find out what the treatment was, if there was one. And you would be online and you'd be researching what it is. But who knows the solution? There's a bunch of solutions, but what's one solution, not from anybody who already knows? Let me tell you, because I want you to leave knowing what the solution is. The solution is a daily reprieve based on spiritual wellness. Because the root of our issue is we have a sickness in our soul. And I beg to tell you, you probably do too now, because you've been around it, and it hurts. And there's a hole in my soul. And if I don't fill it with something from the outside constantly, or when I don't fill it with drugs and alcohol, or sugar, or cigarettes, or a relationship, or your addiction, when I'm constantly looking outside myself, I have a hole. When I fill that hole in my soul on a daily basis with a spiritual program, a practice, I stay well that day. And then I get up the next day and I do it all over again. So I'll say that again. Our solution is a daily reprieve from a spiritual sickness based on my spiritual condition. It's important for families to know that. Treatment facilities aren't calling you, telling you. But I am now being asked to go into treatment facilities to help clinicians engage patients, families. And when I first was asked to do that, I was really confused, because I was like 3 years sober and not going to work in this field, not going to have a business in this field. And I realized we don't know how to talk. We don't know how to light people on fire to believe in themselves. Do we have time for any more questions? Yeah, we do. We have a few more minutes. Yeah.
I have a question about, for anyone.
I have a question about working with people before, it's addiction. So I'm in school, and, our community has been very impacted by addiction, but generally that's not something that's talked about until after they've left, usually, right? Sometimes, but not always. So, but the seeds are planted sometimes really young. So my question is, what advice do you have for our community when those initial...
How old are you talking?
I'm in the middle school or the high school, so, but it could potentially even be younger, right? So when those things first start happening and no one wants to talk about it, if there's less alcohol in the bottles or there's money that's missing, and then who do you call, right? So we want to try to move the needle before we have addiction.
Yeah.
Because some of the experiences based on well-intended advice have not been met with the spirit that we would hope, and I don't know often how to help people.
What was that last part?
We don't know how to help people sometimes.
Right. Well, that's just it. Sure. I'll summarize the question. It is true. The bottom, what I just took from the end is we don't know what to do. And so that's what I want to do, is go out and talk about how we can do this. So to summarize the question, it's it may be that addiction is actually happening, but maybe in junior high age kids, you see something missing, you suspect it might be happening?
Well, right, and if we came to Kate, if we were at the Ruth's presentation, we know, right, it could be, right? There's a good
Yeah.
chance that it is.
Yeah, so, and then I think the other part was, what about younger children? Is that what even younger?
Right.
Where do we start? So I do think, the first thought I have when that comes to mind is, we have to treat the conversation with the family carefully. This is really scary. Imagine hearing that for the first time and your kid's in like 7th grade and you have no exposure to it. I think what I've learned, one of the things I've learned that I was the most surprised by is families' acceptance of addiction mirrors ours as an addict and an alcoholic, meaning, I don't like the word denial, but inability to accept it first is very strong, right? It's so scary, we just kind of go, whoop, I don't think so. Or we might be defensive. So I think I want us to be delicate with the family. And I think it'd be a great time to bring someone in, a clinician or an interventionist or a recovery coach, to talk to staff. And who else do you have for a staff training? That would be what I would want, is a conversation with staff. How do you talk about these sensitive issues? It would be like any other issue, right? That would come up for that age, which there's a million. So that's a really important, yeah.
But who would a family call? I guess
Who would a family call? And I'm just looking for your advice. I'm sorry if this is off topic, but we wouldn't be calling 911 and we wouldn't be going to the court.
No.
So who would they call?
Anita, what do you think?
Because it is easy to say.
Yeah, so learn to cope.
Yeah.
Learn to cope or,
That's what I was saying.
as an interventionist, I wear a few hats, right? Intervention, case management, I wear all the hats. And I would say someone like me or learn to cope, someone that is able to educate the staff on having that conversation. Even a really good therapist in your area that you could get a relationship with who specializes in addiction. Someone really that can have sticky family conversations and help staff. And how to talk to children. What the young ones, I think, what I really want to see happening is mindfulness conversations. How we handle stress. Here's one of the things that kids do so well with. And I remember this book years ago because I started my career in early childhood, and it was a book called Annie's Stories. And the idea was, you take an example and you talk about it from your own experience, and you can even change the ending. But it's basically, how many times do we miss out on this? And what I was looking for as a little girl was resolution of what I could feel was this conflict in the other room. And so that's what Annie's Stories is talking about, one time I had this thing I was really upset about, and this is what I did about it. It's modeling how we cope. Healthy coping strategies is what I think the conversations need to be happening. Meditation, 1-minute meditation with young children, yoga. Connection, right? To the slide with connection and presence. Cap, did that help? Cap?
I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if, like, in middle school, for a health class, or just to have someone, to have 2 young people in recovery come talk, 'cause that would really keep it real to them, and they would really understand that, hey, I was in your shoes to party a little, and it led to this.
So there are a couple of things going on like that. So Kathy was saying it would be really cool if in junior high people could come and speak. And I know Alexa did a program in Littleton.
Yep.
In Littleton, where she was teaching her experience to the students, and
That was 7th grade.
7th grade.
Yep.
Yep. And there's recovery high schools. Now's the time to get involved in this and find out what's going on. You'd be shocked. I didn't know those Pathfinders were in Section 35. So don't assume that the way things have been, it's going to stay that way. Finally starting to shake things up. Any other questions? Here's what I want to ask you to do right now on your booklet. There's a section, a page with the Serenity Prayer. I've been playing a lot with the Serenity Prayer. Families say a lot to me, it's that wisdom to know the difference. So it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And I might write what someone else is doing. Courage to change the things I can. How I speak to them. How I act around them. What boundaries I set. And I pray for the wisdom to know the difference. So write something down here. I'd really love for you guys to sit for a minute and write something down that you're taking away, that you want to try, that you want to learn, whether it's boundaries, whether it's having a healthy conversation, whether it's confronting something, whether it's talking about an intervention in your family, whether it's trying to get someone else in your family to come to one of these with you, or watch the video, or watch Ruth Poteet, or read a book. There's so many great books right now. Mike Wilson wrote Loving Lions, must read for all families. Interventionists, you can Google Loving Lions, must read. Great book. Tons of analogies and lots of good strategies for you. So write down a couple of things you're willing to, yes?
So, one of the things I thought about, a person I'm thinking of lives out of state that is very close to me and I've seen in family, gatherings. Would my not partaking in drinking be a good contribution, or would it matter in any way?
When you're with someone, does it matter if you drink? That's a great question.
Because I find sometimes it's like I don't want the other person to, but I want to.
Yeah.
So I say yes to it.
So it's a personal decision. I think it's respectful to ask.
I think sometimes you get an answer
That might not be the truth. And so the person's active
Say,
in
"No, it's
recovery.
fine."
Person's in recovery.
Well, yes, sort of.
So I think it's a really personal decision. For me, I would not. I don't know. How do I know what I would do because I'm in recovery? I think it's a really personal decision. I think it's respectful not to. I'll just tell you a quick story. My first or second year home for Christmas, I walked in and nobody was drinking. And my family's a drinking family. And you could hear a pin drop. Nobody knew what to talk about. It was awkward. And I was really mad. I had a resentment. I felt they were hypocritical. And the next day I went to my meeting and I raised my hand. I was going to share it. Because when we share stuff at meetings, guys, that's what keeps us sober, which is why I wanted you to turn to the person next to you. Because how you need to stay sober is to know where you can't control and know where you can, and to release some of your burden. So I went to share this, and the person next to me got called first, and he said, I went home for Christmas, my family was hammered, and I was so pissed. And I sat there and I thought, oh my God, my family is damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they were drunk, I would have been mad, and if they weren't drinking, I was mad. So that's another thing. You don't really know. Please yourself. I would say, do what you want to do. But, I also think, I said once to a family, so if I'm allergic to walnuts, would you guys all sit around and chop walnuts in front of me? Probably not. Like, if your person is newly recovering, I think it's really wise to not. And it's respectful. Again, though, I had an attitude about it, so I want to show you. Oh, I wanted to tell you one thing. This middle one is a 12-week intensive that I'm starting in mid-May. I just want to tell you guys about it. And here's my little pitch, or remember the elephant in the room story? And the things we didn't talk about, right? We don't talk about conflict, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about God. Well, I have to talk about God every day. And I do talk about money because I decided I wanted to be paid. I would love to do this for nothing. But I label that elephant in the room, and here's why. My coach said to me when somebody was urging me to create this program that got incredible results. I created a curriculum. And someone said, so you have something that you can offer these families. How dare you keep it from them? So I'm going to talk about it, not because I think it's bad or wrong, or I'm not going to not talk about it because it's bad or wrong to talk about, right? I'm not promoting it. You get to decide if you want to do it or not. Because if I didn't share it with you guys, I would be withholding something of value. And I'm not going to do that. And that took some grown-up skill. Because it's not fun. I'd rather work for nothing. And I would do this for nothing, but I can't. The landlord said. So, the 12-week family intensive, I'm going to have 20 people. And it's from home. It'll be online and virtual. We'll be having meetings over video conference. And it'll be once a week, and it's the first of its kind. All my teachers are going to be teaching in it with me. So my teachers are Earl Hightower, California, Tommy Rosen from Recovery 2.0, Reese Thomas from my energy school, and Mike Wilson, who is a trainer and supervisor for me as well with the intervention. So they'll all be teaching. There'll be 20 families. We will meet weekly. Everything will be recorded. There'll be meditations available by audio. There'll be boundary workshops by audio. It's this link that's here is not open yet. I just wanted everyone here to know about it. If stuff that was talked about today and you felt like, you know what, I want to make a difference in my family, I'm going to do this. I'm not ready for an intervention. The meetings that I'm going to are good, but I want more. And here's where I invite you. I say this all the time, and there are a handful of you that really have told me in your emails to me and in your cards to me that the thing that you thought was going to be the thing in your life when your person overdosed, or you found out someone you loved has an addiction, it turned out to be the biggest gift for you. And I know that's hard to hear when you're in a struggle, and if you are right now, understand that I'm talking about when you're able to separate from it. My story and my pain has by far completely changed my life. And I know many of you that are sitting here would not have access to the new self-love, the new peace in your heart that you would have had you not embarked on in some of these programs and journeys. Does that make sense? I know some of you sitting here, yeah, and there's those of you that said you have peace in your heart. So if you're at all interested about it, I'll stay and answer questions about it. But look at this last one. And that's going to make me cry. And I'm going to tell you what that says at the bottom, but this is my grandson, Ryan. He's 9. When he was 2 years old, I had him in the car multiple times, drunk. And people found out about it. And no one did anything because they didn't know what to do. And it was damn hard and damn scary. But I'm grateful that nothing happened. And I'm going to talk about this more than maybe you want me to, or more than is comfortable for people that love me, till I die, because that's worth it. So here's what I want to tell you. This is really cool. If you text, I say yes to 22828, you sign up for my emails. How cool is that? So if you have not signed up for my emails and you want them, we don't send them a lot, once or twice a week maybe, and maybe that's a lot. So don't do it. If you laugh, is that a lot? But 22828. You want to try it? Or you're already on it, so maybe it wouldn't work. 22828. So put that number in and then write, I say yes in the text. And apparently that's what's going to happen. You're like in the email list. So, I should stop? Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to stop her, but we promised you could go home now. Thank you, Kate, so much. Your honesty is so refreshing. And it's a path forward. A path forward to a new place that we wouldn't have gotten to otherwise, even though the pain's hard. Thank you. Thank you all for coming this evening. We have food in the hallway still. Has your name on it. Please eat it before you go. And if you had a question that maybe you didn't want to say out loud, have a piece of paper. Jack, would you stand up and wave? I'm going to ask him, would you give your card to Jack as you leave? He'll collect your pens also.
Make sure your phone number or email's on it so we can get back
to you. I don't know about you, but I felt like this was a real beginning. A real beginning. Thank you. Out on the table, speaking of how do we talk to our families, we have some booklets out there from the state Bureau of Substance Abuse about how to talk to your children. There are some designed for young children, middle schoolers, high schoolers, etc. There's also a flyer about vaping. There is another flyer about Narcan training. It's done in Fitchburg every month. and just some more resources on that sheet. I hope you don't feel overwhelmed with resources. You can pick and choose, but we want you to have what's useful. On the inside of your program, you will see the Learn to Cope that Kate referenced. I know there are people I know and care about who use this, and it's a lifeline. There is another group called HALO. You'd have to Google that, HALO, which is specifically for families who have lost someone to overdose. That's kind of another place that your head and your heart may be that would be more appropriate than the Learn to Cope. But these groups are here for you, as well as the AA and Al-Anon groups. You don't have to do this by yourself. There is hope. Things can change.
Let me also just say, tomorrow night is our once-a-month recovery conversation at the Littleton Town Hall at 6 p.m. And it's a smaller group, and we sit around, and you get to ask your specific questions. It's free. So that's 6 to 7:30 tomorrow night at Littleton Town Hall. Please come if you'd like to talk about any of this or anything you got going on.
While it's fresh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And if you have feedback, go to the board